cheers.
Cheers.
Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't we get things started by, for those who may not know who you are, what you do.
Yeah. I'm Will Hodge, an attorney here in Charlotte. I work with McMillan Law, and we only do 3 areas of law. We do commercial real estate, business law, and financial services, representing banks, borrowers. But those are only 3 areas. We do what I like to call happy law, where no one's going into a courtroom. I've been practicing for 3 years now, and I have not smelled a courtroom, which is awesome. You go to law school and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go into the courtroom and argue and be some sort of John Grisham character. But I was like, that's the opposite of what I want to do, because I just don't like arguing. I like to negotiate, but arguing, no way. But yeah, so we've been in the city since 2012. We just opened our 2nd office in Charleston, South Carolina. Really excited about that. When I started, there was only 3 of us attorneys, and that was back in 2018. And now we're up to, I believe it's 6, with the 7th on the way. And things have been doing great. I mean, obviously being in a market like Charlotte, where commercial real estate, especially, is huge.
Everywhere.
Helping clients along the way, such as Dan, help him purchase this place and kind of get his business going, and then of course leases, any sort of anything that really has to do with commercial real estate that doesn't involve litigation. We're your firm.
So it sounds like, based off that growth, that something like a global pandemic hasn't really affected you all in a negative light.
No, and the pandemic was a very trying time, in the sense that when it first started, I kind of took the approach of, and I had a goal in my mind in March or April. I said, I kind of saw the writing on the wall that this was going to be really bad for hospitality, retail, all these different businesses that were being forced to shut down or have their capacities limited or reduced. Exactly. And my goal going into it was to keep all of my clients' doors open, whether landlords, tenants, whatever it was. I wanted to make sure everybody that, was running a business at the time was not forced to close their door. And, knock on wood, not a single client closed their door. And this is not to sound, braggadocious or anything like that, but helping them navigate that thing, or navigate the whole pandemic, we didn't make a dime off of it. It was simply me finding different grants, PPP loan information, basically any kind of aid that we could help with, we found, and then we disseminated that either through LinkedIn, website, blind copy emails. I think people probably got annoyed with me. It was like, Will, here's another doom and gloom email from Will, but I always tried to put something in there. It's like, hey, but they go and apply here and try to get this, and just putting people in touch with people that could help, and here in Charlotte, I think we've grown our network enough to where we knew enough lenders. So, of course, one of the things was, hey, my bank, whatever bank it was, if they were too big or what have you, they're not going to be able to help me get any sort of relief.
Experienced it personally.
Yeah, and it was sad, because you kind of realize, okay, maybe you were just a number to this bank or whatever, but then you had those smaller banks that we work with traditionally that were given the attention. I remember a couple banks off the top of my head that I said, hey, I've got a client, or I've got just someone I know in my network that needs help. Right. And those people, despite them staying up hours and hours and hours with these PPP loans, they took the call, they made the calls to the client. And I think one of the best things, or one of the best results of the pandemic, was a restaurant owner here in town. He called me and he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know I got my PPP loan, or I got my CARES Act, whatever it was. And he's like, thank you so much. And that made my day. And then I was like, that was because I don't know if Dan's mention this and stuff like that, but I like to think that we're not your stereotypical, lawyers or anything. I mean, this is pretty dressed up for me, but usually I'm in a t-shirt and shorts. But we're more than just people that kind of do the legal work, hand it over to you, see you later. We're the type that we want to keep these relationships going. And I want to come and visit places like this. I mean, especially places like this that are this cool and fun to hang out with, smoke a cigar, drink some whiskey. And we love doing that and developing those relationships as opposed to simply being, hey, I need a lawyer to do this real quick, see you later. That's not how we operate. It's funny, I emailed Dan the other day. Have you seen the candy store thing that's popped up in Park Road? Have you heard about that?
No.
There's a guy named Dan Wise. It's opening a candy store in Park Road. And it's like a unique toy / candy shop or whatever.
Did you just assume it was him?
Yes. Yes. I immediately took that. I immediately saw that on Charlotte Business Journal. And this is what I get for reading the headline and like the first 2 lines of an article, which is unfortunately what I do a lot of time. But I was like, Charlotte, hospitality, whatever. It said Dan Wise on there, opening candy shop. And I was like, Dan, this is awesome. I mean, I wasn't involved with it at all, but like, this is great. Like, this is right next to my house. I'm going to come over here. Yeah, great. And he's like, that's not me. So I was like, what are the odds there's another Dan Wise in Charlotte that does, hospitality, retail, whatever. And I'm just like, that's embarrassing. So.
But at the end of the day, I think that hearing this, it makes me think of a lot of people probably perceive interactions with lawyers, as you might say, is like, I need this, I need that. It's probably not the most glamorous relationship.
Right.
You grab it and move on. But it sounds like what you all are fostering is a true partnership with your clients.
Absolutely.
And that's certainly something from a small business standpoint in Charlotte that I will say from past ventures that it feels like it's been lacking. That I guess pandemic or not, it's just a huge opportunity regardless. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And these circumstances may certainly have fostered a lot of that to just introduce the idea to everyone that it could be more than that. So I mean it's a major kudos. Where do you see things heading? Like it's interesting. I'm curious. You have the 3 particular areas. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you will probably get inquiries if you would do other things. Mm-hmm. Why the particular focus?
Well, Shawn, who's the founding partner, owner of the firm, he did the big law. He did there was a firm that's from Wall Street, but they had a Charlotte branch down here. So when he came out of law school, I think it was about 2003, I think is when he started, but he went into this big law firms where any kind of work they took in, they did it. They had certain departments that did everything. And so he was kind of able to touch, I guess, different areas of law and kind of figure out what he enjoyed doing and what he liked, what he was good at, I think. And then through his career before he started the firm, he kind of just honed in those skills of, and I can name off all of the crazy things that he's done, but he found these 3 areas that, he found that he knew enough about to where he could hire people on and teach them that same industry or teach them that same business. But more than anything, I think it's just cool because we're one of the first people, even though we can't tell everybody about it, but we're the first people that know about, hey, I've got this business idea and I want to, I want to protect it. I want to set up an LLC. I want to start this business. I have this great concept. And I'm like, that's so cool that you hear about this stuff. And you want to just see it boom. You want to see it grow. So once we found those 3 areas, rather than stretching ourselves to other areas of law, maybe employment law, family law, we wanted to know our craft the best that we could. And so when someone comes in, and obviously the law is changing every day, and like I can tell you I learned something new just about every day, and I'm one of the first people that'll tell you if I don't know something, I'm going to tell you that. I'm not going to be one of these kind of egotistical or arrogant, whatever you want to call it, and be like, Oh yeah, and just spit out some bullshit or bull crap, whatever. Spit something out and say, hey, and then have someone call me on it or something like that. I think that doesn't do anybody any good. Back to your original question, but commercial real estate, business law, and financial services, we know that stuff enough to where we really think that we add value to a transaction. There's tons of times where something will come through and I'm like, look, I am not going to add a whole lot of value here. I can look at it from, bird's eye view or whatever you want to call it and just say, I think we should do this and everything, but I don't think that's really valuable because you're just asking me to look at something I don't really know.
Sure.
So, but yeah, those are the only three areas. And being in a market like this, especially in Charlotte, where you have all these businesses moving to town, this Charlotte real estate market does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. And it's really encouraging, kind of going back to the pandemic. Leases, I think, are coming back, which is great to see, both offices and retail and stuff like that. It obviously was on halt as far as entering into new stuff, but I think probably since the beginning of the year, things have really kind of turned around, which is encouraging to see.
So thinking about this market in particular, I think that the content that people see in terms of stories that are developing in Charlotte, all of a sudden you have this new retail district coming. You have this new commercial district emerging, and you see these plans where it could be 12 to 36 months, but things are clearly setting a course of action for certain neighborhoods to just, transform.
Yeah.
The identities are going to be completely different.
Absolutely.
Do you see a lot of push and pull? Because I know as a general consumer,
yeah,
I read comments and you have people that are like, well, why are they doing that to that neighborhood? Just recently it's, Plaza Midwood is going to get a huge facelift.
Right.
Do you see pushback on either side? Like, how does that dynamic look when you have someone who's bringing in what's clearly going to be growth?
Right.
But you also have Charlotte that's like, well, this has been part of our identity, and they're afraid that may change.
Right. No, I have seen it. I lived in the west side of town, so I think that's a really good example of this. And actually a couple people Shawn actually lives over on that side of town as well. And that's a perfect example of, that's a side of town that no one went into 10 years ago or whatever it was. No, you're like, someone's on the west side, I'm not going over there. But now, they've got a brewery, they've got the coffee, they've got all this different development that's coming over there. And obviously there's more development to come. You talk about the Thrift Road development. You got the seltzery out there. There's a number of other things coming down the pipe, which is great. But I think from a push and pull perspective, there's those people that have been in that neighborhood and been in the west side for however many years. I think the vast majority of them are excited about it. But there are a few people that are realizing what this development is going to mean as far as tax payments, for instance. Right. And during the pandemic or during this market, there's been a lot of people that have frankly cashed out on this market and either sold their homes, but there's also a handful of them that are aware of how this development's going to affect them. Now, as far as what kind of actual pushback they're giving at this point, I don't know that they've done it yet, simply because the development's coming, but it's not done yet.
Sure.
So I think until it starts really hitting people's pockets, I think it's just simply we're aware of this kind of thing. And, until it really hurts us and it really jacks up, like I said, taxes or what have you, I don't think that I haven't seen it. Now, granted, I'm not at the city and in these zoning meetings or anything like that, but if there are people pushing back and everything, I think it's kind of at a smaller. The majority of it, people are excited about it.
Well, and the west side is a unique example because, like you said, not only were people kind of maybe even concerned from a security standpoint, but all of a sudden in the neighborhood you have job creation, and you mentioned some of those concepts. Those are things that are unique to Charlotte, where, and I've had fun with friends at it before, but it's like, you know, when you land at the Charlotte airport and you're going to pick up your luggage, there's signage of what is there to see and do.
Right.
And for the longest time, it's been well, you can go to the Whitewater Center, you can go to the NASCAR Hall of Fame,
right?
And it's, you know, what else makes Charlotte unique and special? And one thing that was fascinating to me is right now the state is talking through this new bill that's coming in where it could be more tourist friendly from an alcohol standpoint. So naturally, we're monitoring it very closely.
Sure.
But it's talking about, well, maybe we have areas that we zone, for lack of a better term, where it would be, you know, open container between a couple of different major venues, which, yeah, other places in the South, that's common knowledge. Like, of course you can do that.
Right.
Charlotte's been really kind of anti any of that for a long time,
Sure.
or the state in general.
Sure.
So it's fascinating to see. But I look at it as, well, you know, when we try to encourage people, come to Charlotte, like, there's lots of things that we do like to do. How do we put that into proper context?
Right.
I think the revitalization of a district like that is a perfect example, because now you have traffic it's never seen. And sometimes it's just people hanging out at the dog park.
Right.
But it's driving this idea of, well, what else could be over here?
Right.
Yeah, we've used the coffee from over there. And I mean, I argue that Bossy Beulah's is the best fried chicken sandwich in town, which is always going to be the big debate.
Absolutely.
But, you know, it presents really fun conversations to me of where it's headed, where it's going.
Right.
But yeah, and then you look at the Belmont area and Optimist Hall and kind of just what it's causing. I do think some people are worried that, well, is it just going to affect rent? But yeah, longer term, of course, as our generation becomes the home buyers formally, and they look at property valuation and taxes and what goes into that, it's definitely a long-term play.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's just, you mentioned like the taking a drink and going somewhere else. I mean, think about Savannah, for instance, you know, it's one of those places that if you were just going to Savannah and you didn't have certain kind of things that made it unique or made it where I can take this drink and go next door to somewhere else or something like that, that's something that kind of, it's a very, very small thing and it seems so simple, but it really does kind of make a difference of like, I don't know, that willingness of either Savannah or Georgia, whoever's kind of administrating it, like giving that leniency to make it a more attractive place. And I think there's people in North Carolina that are trying. There's a good handful of them, but you know, for whatever reason, you know, North Carolina law is very I'm going to use the word archaic, but it's old.
Right.
It's old, and it just hasn't changed. And we were talking about off camera or whatever about we don't have happy hours,
right?
And just about everywhere else, at least in the Southeast, I think, has a happy hour. I can't go and, you know, get a drink, and you know that's something that's such a small thing that when it's taken away or whatever. I'm not saying I'm going to every happy hour, but right. it is a big thing, and it's just that's just one example of the things. And then the you know, you can't do certain, you know, drink specials, and you know there's certain laws and everything, and I don't mean to disparage ABC entirely, but it's tough. It's making things tough for these small business owners that have these fantastic ideas, but there's some arbitrary law out there that says you can't do it for God knows what reason, because maybe someone back in the 1800s thought it was a good idea, or you know, one Johnny had a bad experience, so they decided to ban the entire thing. We've got to find a way to bring North Carolina to date, or bring it current with everywhere else, as far as that goes. Because that's, again, like I said, that's only going to help small businesses and help big businesses. You know, whoever you want to help, it's going to help everybody.
Well, they know I am a very outspoken critic of the system over the years.
Yeah.
And that's just because of, as you try to build a couple of concepts, of course, you gravitate towards, as you hit on the head, if you were able to, as it currently stands, the law asks, oh, you want to have that special for that day, it has to be that special all hours of the day
Yep.
for that day.
Yep.
And so, perfect example, the Vintage decided we wanted to start a industry night to give back to some of the bartenders and servers in town, and just, you know, give the cooks a place to go and vent for a little bit, because there aren't enough of those.
Right.
Well, you know, normally we would say any other place, it's like, okay, yep, Monday night from 6 o'clock to close or what have you. No, here it has to be, well, those specials for your favorite tomorrow and whatnot's going to be all day.
Yep.
And, you know, do we end up biting off more than we can chew? Maybe. But, you know, we're willing to do it because we believe in that theme, and we want to be able to encourage those guys that this is a fun, elevated space for them to come and just, whether it be network or just share with each other how crazy the weekend was.
Right.
It's going to be something. But, yeah, as I'm really curious for your opinion, as we continue to take these arguments up the ranks, what is that core factor? Do we think that tourism is going to benefit the most? Do we think that mom and pop shops benefit the most? Or is it the individual consumer? Because, of course, Charlotte proper, and you can go to Raleigh and other places in the state, they will have very differing opinions over how they think the mixed beverage, as the state defines it, should be treated, as opposed to individuals that are just retail shoppers.
Right.
Which area stands to benefit the most, or is there a way to craft it that it's a win-win for everybody?
I think I don't know exactly what the form of it looks like, but I think there's a way you can craft it where it's a win-win for your tourists, your mom and pop shops, your individual consumers, that, you know, makes it attractive for, you know, a tourist to come in here, and maybe there's some sort of unique concept, especially with that amount of people that are in here in Raleigh, and people are moving down here. There's all sorts of concepts. You know, we talk about being a transient city like Charlotte is. If you meet someone from Charlotte, they're a unicorn. But it's crazy because all these people moving from New York, Chicago, and there's so many of those concepts that are up there that, you know, I'll go visit friends in New York or Chicago, or I'll go visit, and be like, that'd kill it in Charlotte. That'd kill it in Raleigh if they just brought it down here and they did this. But I think there's a few of those concepts. But actually, I know a few of those concepts that they haven't made it down here because of some, like I said, arbitrary law that is in place in North Carolina, where you could have a version of the concept, but you couldn't have the full thing. So if we can get to the point where, you know, the lawmakers and the people that actually have the power to change what we're looking at, if they can see it from that perspective of, like you said, tourism, mom and pop shop, you know, individuals looking at a concept and going, that is really cool. Like, I mean, for instance, you know, we got the first seltzery over here, you know, kind of on the East Coast, and, you know, what if we were able to, you know, somehow intertwine that with the brewery that's next door to it? What if I was able to, you know, take a beer from the, you know, the brewery that's going to be next door and walk over and just go into the seltzery, or vice versa? I'm not in the mood for a beer, but I can let them hone in on their craft on the beer and them hone in on their seltzer. I don't know, something like that. But I think it's, and I don't know what the form of it looks like. I don't know if it takes the form of me going into one of those YouTube or Twitter viral videos where a guy's, you know, being a proponent of getting rid of boneless wings. If it's like one of those type things, if I need to go and get in front of a plaster thing and make my argument, I don't know what that process looks like. But I think if you're able to get whoever it is in charge seeing those benefits that come in all three phases that you mentioned, it could be crazy. Because, I mean, look, Charlotte, if you look at any sort of economical report or any sort of, like, I think U-Haul puts out some sort of report, like where are most of our trucks going and stuff like that, Charlotte is right there in the top 5 and all these lists. And Charlotte's changed. We just have to, like, accept that. And I don't know if maybe that's a factor of why things haven't changed. Like, North Carolina and Charlotte as a whole, it's different than what it was, hell, 20 years ago, you know, something like that. It's a whole new ball game.
I would argue the 4 key markets, Asheville, Charlotte, Raleigh, Wilmington.
Yes.
Every single one, the dynamic has changed drastically in the last decade.
Right.
I mean, I went to undergrad here. My family had moved into the mountains when I was in middle school and high school, and then just also visiting the others or doing business and understanding the dynamic.
Yeah.
Wilmington, small businesses have started to really thrive and pick up, and the downtown is bumping. Raleigh-Durham has just become even more of a research hub, but also headquarters for more major businesses.
Right.
Seeing incentives and other things drive that because they have the land. But yeah, here, I mean, like I said, I think my wife is one of the only unicorns in the area, and she has a shirt proudly stating that fact. But, you know, everybody that saddles up to the bar here, yep, relocated from Jersey. Yep, moved up from Alabama. It's like, there are things that are appealing to people about Charlotte that are having to move here. So I guess I'm just intrigued, maybe even just from a Charlotte standpoint, are there major hurdles even from a real estate standpoint moving forward because I mean, yeah, trust me, I'm going to take up the fight when it comes to the alcohol and the whole 9 yards.
Sure.
But when we look at real estate and how, you know, there are some towns and cities that they're built out and they're very intentional with the way things are constructed.
Right.
Some of the criticism of Charlotte has been that a lot of it has been being reactive, not proactive,
right,
to different neighborhoods and suburbs growing out. And
right.
Most recently for us here, it's them tearing up South Boulevard to build up the water capacity.
Notice that on the way over here.
To try to play catch up. Like that, it's going to be a thing for a while.
Right.
Do you see any other challenges from a real estate standpoint that are going to maybe inhibit that people should try to face head on when we look at this growth?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to 2008. No one saw the bubble coming except for a few people, but I think that's probably the biggest thing right now. I mean, look at it this way: you've got people scrambling because we are being very reactive with the amount of people that have moved to Charlotte. I think one of the biggest industries that I've been working with over the past year or so is multifamily. Either people that are developing it, building it, simply because we're running out of room to have all these 100%. People. I mean, you look at South End, or you look at any of these surrounding areas of Uptown, it is a big, big move to multifamily and providing enough apartments. And God help them whenever that they grow out of that apartment and everything, and they're ready to move into that house. We're at the max capacity, in my opinion. Obviously, there will be more and more, and we'll just build higher and stuff like that. But from a real estate perspective, where is the ceiling? When are we going to burst? When is it going to eventually, look at the residential and everything like that. I mean, people that maybe bought their house back in 2019 or something like that. I mean, some of them you see in the 50% value. They've gained 50% value just in 2 years. They haven't put in a pool. They haven't done anything crazy, and not that a pool adds value to your home, but anyway. But
perception is everything. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And so, from a real estate perspective, I think you've got to, and I don't know what this market is. I don't know what our benchmark or maybe our case study and everything, just because it's such a unique growth that we've seen in such a short amount of time. You got to find something that goes, okay, they got overrun by this, or this city got overrun by this. And I don't know if it's like, obviously not the level of New York or Chicago or anything like that, but I got to imagine there's another city. I mean, maybe we look at Nashville. Mm-hmm. Nashville, I think, is a great example of this similar type growth, but I don't know that they had necessarily everything that we had to anticipate their growth. Right. Obviously, tourism's a big thing for them, or a bigger thing for them than us. And I have a lot of friends there in Nashville, but they're seeing the same type of things in the real estate market. The crazy prices, the seller's market, everything that you could think that we're having, real estate-wise that we're seeing here, they're seeing over there. I will say this, I'll give Charlotte credit on this. The light rail and having that concept at least here already before this big boom, and I know they're expanding it and making the gold line and everything like that, and I really think that's going to be good for everybody once it starts being utilized. But it's that's a good example of, but now Nashville's like, we're scrambling to try to build something similar to a light rail because we have all these people that are commuting 40, 50 an hour, forever to just try to get into town and everything like that. And I think the light rail and stuff, like obviously maybe takes about the same amount of time, but you're not driving. It alleviates some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's always interesting because we're in our profession and, we're having people, hey, I bought some land out in this part of town and this and that. I'm like, well, is that the next great area? Is that the next development and everything? And so I think everybody in this market is trying to find the next Plaza Midwood or the next Noda and stuff like that. So I don't think Charlotte's as ill-equipped as we may think it is for the growth. I just don't think they anticipated this much growth this quick.
I mean, everyone will be their own worst critic.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
I mean, from this little train that's been put uptown that's now running that, that took forever to the Hawthorne Bridge and Plaza, like, yes, you're going to have these eventual delays. And unfortunately, we are those citizens that are going to be like, why?
Yeah.
I'm sure we could do it so much better if we were the ones making those decisions.
Right.
And maybe, doubtful, but maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy to me because if you look at the way the data worked out, like all along it seemed like there were areas like Steel Creek and out towards Ballantyne, like everything seemed very planned out and methodical. And it was like, okay, we will find these ways to make it work.
Right.
And yes, to your point, by having the light rail, I think everybody that lives on 485 or just outside of it right now, they're fine driving half an hour for their commute.
Sure.
Right now, it's not a big deal. I mean, there was a gentleman here this morning that came up from Rock Hill and was like, I had a meeting up this way anyway, so I figured I'd stop in for a minute.
Sure.
And it's just like, okay, they're content, but say you add another 5% of that over the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
We see what 77 turns into, what 85 turns into.
Right.
It could be catastrophic.
Well, and there's no denying that, there's a number of people, friends of mine and people I work with, they live in South Carolina because guess what? It's not as expensive as it is here in North Carolina. And Charlotte's very unique in that we're one of those cities right there on the border. So we have people that, hey, if I want to go get the benefits of South Carolina, I'll just take a quick 30-minute drive down there. And I'll add the commute if that means me paying, however much less in taxes. Now, obviously, North Carolina's not going to come out and say, well, we'll match it or incentivize you to stay here and everything. They're not having that problem. And that's what's crazy to me too is I really want to get the perspective of someone that moved here 2019, 2020. What was it that made Charlotte such an attractive? And I haven't had the opportunity. I probably have had the opportunity, but that's something I need to be asking people. I don't want it to come across as like, what are you doing here? Why'd you move to? Why are you here? Why are you here? Why'd you move to my city? Because I'm from Tennessee and I moved here in 2014, and that was it was growing and everything, but it's just crazy. I've been here gone 7 years now, and seeing how much everything has changed just in that short amount of time. But I want to go to him and just say, hey, what was it that sold this? Was it the proximity to the beach? Was it the bank? Did you have a good job? Is it us becoming more of a banking city?
Sure.
Was there an opportunity work-wise, or did you just want to get out of the cold, or you just like, hey, they have 4 seasons down here. I don't know. I want to get in the mind of someone like that, but doing it in a way that doesn't come across as, why are you here? I don't want to come across as being like, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like the opportunity for that conversation is going to come up as you guys do more multifamily work and et cetera, because surely from the demand that they're getting, they should have some of that data that shows it's everybody coming from New York, New Jersey, because they want better taxes, a better lifestyle, or what have you.
Right.
Out of curiosity, just because I don't know, us being so close to this border, does McMillan do work in South Carolina as well, or is it just North Carolina?
We do. We do. We're actually licensed in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. We have one attorney that's licensed in New York.
Wow.
I'm actually licensed in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee,
Okay.
with the idea that we are going to continue to expand into the Southeast because, like I said, with Nashville, we see the growth.
Mm-hmm.
We see it out there, and that's one of the main reasons I went, not only being from Tennessee, but just seeing the growth in Nashville. Oh, we have our eyes set on setting up a Nashville office because we think the opportunity is there. Now, are we probably the last in line to move to Nashville? It kind of seems like it, but the way things are growing, maybe we're right in the middle, or maybe I don't know. But that's kind of our goal, and Shawn's had the vision ever since I started of we want to be in the whole Southeast, Florida, Alabama. We want to be anywhere that there's commercial growth or we see the opportunity. That's where we're going to be. Now, are we going up to Chicago, New York? Probably not. Maybe one day, but right now our eyes are kind of set on the Southeast because we see this growth happening everywhere in the Southeast, and we kind of want to follow it and be there. And so obviously we do closings, we do work out of our Charlotte office for Tennessee, and like I said, we just opened up the Charleston office and everything. So we want to have office presences in each of those states. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Like I said, we're just growing and every day. And one day I think we'll realize like, oh crap, we're all over the place. We're Miami and stuff like that. Which I'm not a big Miami guy, but Shawn is. So whatever.
There you go.
Whatever.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like these targets. I mean, there are also markets that, as a up and coming hospitality group here, the look is where are those places where there is clearly quality of life, where you have people that are positioning themselves to where they have expendable income, to where they are, responsible, secure, they feel comfortable. And like I said, from Nashville to Charleston, I mean, we even look at Greenville, South Carolina as, that is a city that is on the up and up, that is continuing to thrive. And so I think it's really cool to see the web start to spread between these, whether it be just, one attorney here, one attorney there. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's also a reflection of people are starting to mirror a lot of the things that they see from piece to piece. So I'm very excited to see where that goes. Yeah, no,
and that's another big aspect of it too is, obviously we work with clients here in Charlotte, or we'll be working with them in South Carolina, and we have those conversations because, like I said, we're not just legal machines, churn and burn, and here's your paper, and we'll see you later. We're like, so where are you going next? I talked to Dan about it. I was like, Dan, where's the next vintage? Where do I need to go get licensed? Do I need to, I can go out to South Dakota, or hell, let's go to Kentucky. I'll go get licensed out there. Let's go find a space. Let's go. So, and that's part of our thing is like we want to grow with the client because we see how great things are going to be, or we want to be able, because we have that relationship. Because look, going to a new market, if you were to go there tomorrow and be like, I don't know anybody here, like who's going to be my who's going to be my bank that helps me out, who's going to be my attorney, who's going to be my accountant and stuff like that. And so if we're able to be licensed there and help them and be able to do work in those states, I think that adds another value. It's another value add for our firm. And just because, there's not a whole lot of people that would be able to grow with you and everything, we could basically say, oh, I'll just help you in North Carolina. We'll see you later. Hey, Dan, let's go to, Ben, let's go to Tennessee. Let's go to Nashville. Let's do it. Yeah. And we can be there and help you out along the way. And I like to think that we've built enough relationship, or we built a good enough relationship with our clients here that we would be a value add to them because they trust us and they've worked with us and we know how they work and we have a great relationship with them. So
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Oh, I can't either, man. I'm excited.
All right, man.
Yeah.
I'm very happy you took the time to come.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Hope you enjoy your larceny.
Oh, yeah.